In a quiet Nigerian village, Nkemdili found a strange glowing clay bottle hidden in her grandmother's hut. With it, she controlled her husband and his family, bending them to her will. But one night, the bottle began to shake violently. Watch what happened in the full story. In the small town of Abalo, there lived a woman named Nkemdili, but everyone called her Nkem. She was a beautiful woman, with sharp eyes that could pierce into your soul. Many people in the community admired her confidence, but behind her soft smile was a secret no one knew. Nkem had been married for 8 years to Ifani, a hard-working trader who sold spare parts in Onitsha. Ifani's family was large and overbearing. His mother, Mama Adiz, was the type of woman who believed no wife could ever be good enough for her son. His brothers, Obinna and Chaik, were always interfering in his household, demanding money and respect. Even his sisters, Ngozi and Amaka, constantly looked down on Nkem as though she were a servant. At first, Nkem endured the insults, the endless complaints, and the controlling attitude. But deep inside her, bitterness began to grow like poison. One rainy evening, as she was sweeping the house, she found an old clay bottle tucked deep inside the wooden cupboard her late grandmother left her. Strange markings wrapped around the bottle, and the cork on top was sealed with what looked like dried palm oil mixed with blood. Her grandmother was known in the village as a woman of mysteries. Some said she was a healer, others whispered she was a woman who knew the ways of spirits. Nkem had always ignored those stories. But now, standing with the bottle in her hands, she felt a sudden coldness pass through her body. Curiosity burned inside her. She waited until midnight, when her husband and children were asleep, then sat on the floor with a candle lit. She held the bottle close and whispered her thoughts. "Whoever owns this bottle, show yourself." The flame flickered violently, and in a split second, a smoky shadow filled the room. A voice whispered in her ear, "Whoever you put in this bottle will obey you forever. They will do your will. They will never rise against you, unless you break the rules." Nkem's heart pounded. She asked, "What rules?" The voice replied, "Never put more than one heart of the same bloodline inside. Never use the bottle for greed. And never open it after you have sealed it with command." Before she could ask more, the shadow disappeared, leaving the room colder than Harmattan morning. Nkem sat trembling. At first, she wanted to throw the bottle away. But then she remembered Mama Adiz's constant insults, Obinna's mockery, Amaka's gossip. Even her husband Ifani sometimes shouted at her, telling her to respect his people, as if she was nothing. Her lips curved into a slow smile. "I will teach them all a lesson." The next day, while Ifani was preparing to go to his shop, Nkem whispered into the bottle, "Take him." Immediately, a small wind blew through the room, and before her very eyes, Ifani vanished, sucked into the clay bottle. Her hands shook as she lifted the cork. She whispered, "Ifani, kneel." From inside the bottle came a tiny muffled voice, "Yes, my wife." Her eyes widened with joy. She had power. Real power. One by one, she lured the rest of his family into her home. Mama Adiz came in to complain about food, she entered the bottle. Obinna arrived asking for money, he entered the bottle. Chaik, Ngozi, Amaka, one after another, they all disappeared inside the clay prison. Now, Nkem had them all. Whenever she wanted peace, she kept them silent. Whenever she needed chores done, she commanded them. "Clean the compound," she whispered, and from inside the bottle, she would hear tiny voices scrubbing and sweeping. "Sing for me," she would say, and songs would echo from the clay walls. At last, she was free. She laughed louder than she had in years. She walked in the village like a queen, her head high, because no one could trouble her again. But power has a way of demanding more. Weeks passed, and Nkem grew addicted to the bottle. She forced them to praise her every morning, to cook for her without resting, to massage her feet with invisible hands at night. The bottle became her world, her weapon, her joy. Until one day. It was on an eerie evening. The sky turned red before sunset, and the air smelled of burning wood. Nkem sat in her room, holding the bottle close to her chest. She whispered, "Dance for me," and the voices obeyed, singing and clapping inside. But then, another sound joined them. A deep voice. A voice she had never heard before. "You broke the rule." Nkem froze. Her hands shook violently. "Who is that?" she asked. The bottle grew hotter in her palms, almost burning her skin. The voice thundered again, "You placed the same bloodline inside. Their hearts are many, but their blood is one. You broke the rule." She tried to drop the bottle, but it stuck to her hands like glue. She screamed, shaking it, hitting it against the wall, but it would not break. From inside, the voices of Ifani and his family grew louder, but they no longer sounded weak. They laughed. They sang a song of vengeance. Her husband's voice roared, "Nkemdili, did you think you could imprison us forever?" The bottle pulsed with a red glow. Her grandmother's shadow appeared in the corner of the room, watching silently, as though waiting for what would happen next. The walls of the house began to shake, and outside, dogs howl. The bottle cracked slightly, releasing a foul wind that smelled of blood and palm oil. And then, the bottle shook in Nkem's trembling hands, and every crack spread like veins of fire. The voices inside grew louder, no longer begging or obeying but chanting her name like a curse. "Nkemdili. Nkemdili. You cannot hold us forever." She tried to scream for help, but no sound came out of her throat. Her lips moved, yet her voice was trapped, as if the bottle had stolen her breath. Suddenly, with a deafening crack, the clay exploded into shards that scattered across the room like tiny blades. Nkem fell backward, shielding her face, but when she looked up, they were there. Her husband Ifani, Mama Adiz, Obina, Chaik, Ngozi, Amaka. All of them stood in the room, but something was wrong. Their eyes glowed faint red, their skin shimmered faintly as though they were not fully human anymore. Ifani stepped forward. His voice was deep, echoing, not like before. "Nkem, you wanted control. You wanted obedience. Now, it is your turn." Nkem crawled backward, shaking her head. "No. No, I only wanted peace. I only wanted respect. Please, forgive me." Mama Adiz laughed, a bitter laugh that carried the weight of curses. "Peace. You imprisoned us in darkness, made us dance and sing like slaves. Do you know what we saw in that bottle? Do you know the spirits you stirred?" Nkem's heart pounded. I didn't mean." Obina's voice cut through sharply. "You broke the rule. When one breaks the rule, the bottle takes a new master. And now." They all raised their hands in unison. The air grew heavy, pressing down on Nkem like a mountain. Invisible chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. She screamed as she was dragged toward the shattered pieces of the bottle. Her husband's voice whispered coldly in her ear, "You will take our place." Before she could resist, the shards of the bottle lifted from the floor and pieced themselves together, glowing blood red. The cork resealed itself, dripping with thick palm oil that smelled rotten. Nkem's body shrank, her voice fading as she was pulled into the clay prison. She clawed at the floor, her fingernails leaving deep marks, but nothing could save her. In one final flash of red light, she disappeared into the bottle. Silence filled the room. The family stood there, breathing heavily, now free. Ifani bent down, picked up the bottle, and stared at it. Inside, they could hear Nkem's tiny voice crying, begging, pounding against the walls. Mama Adiz smirked. "Let her taste what she gave us." But Ifani shook his head. "No. This thing is cursed. As long as it exists, someone else will suffer." He took the bottle outside into the night. The moon was full, casting a silver glow over the compound. Without hesitation, he hurled the bottle into the river that flowed at the edge of the village. It vanished beneath the waters, leaving only ripples. The family returned home, exhausted but relieved. They swore never to speak of it again. But deep under the dark river, the bottle sank slowly into the mud. Nkem's faint voice echoed from within, whispering, crying, plotting. And some nights, when the moon is full and the river is quiet, villagers say they hear a woman's voice calling from beneath the water. "Obey me. Obey me. Obey me." Years passed. The story of Nkem's strange disappearance faded like morning mist. People whispered about her, but no one truly knew what happened. Some said she ran away, others claimed she went mad and drowned herself in the river. But the river remembered. One Harmattan season, a young fisherman named Emeka came to Abalo from Nsukka. He was strong, restless, and always searching for more than the simple life he lived. He had heard stories about treasures that sometimes appeared in rivers, cowries that turned to gold, calabashes filled with wealth, charms that made men powerful. One evening, as he cast his net into the dark waters, his net snagged on something heavy. He struggled, pulling with all his strength until at last, he dragged it to shore. It was a clay bottle. The markings on it glowed faintly under the moonlight, and the cork was sealed with thick, blackened palm oil. Emeka frowned, confused. What is this? It looks old, maybe valuable. He took it home, curious. That night, as he sat alone in his hut, he turned the bottle over in his hands. His younger sister, Ozioma, peeked in. "Brother, what are you holding?" Emeka smiled. "Treasure, maybe. Something the river gave me." But as he placed the bottle on the floor, he heard it, soft, muffled knocking from inside. Then a woman's voice, faint, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. "Release me, please, release me." Emeka froze. "Who is there?" The voice grew clearer. "I am Kemdili. I was trapped unjustly. Free me, and I will give you anything you desire, wealth, power, respect. Everything." His heart raced. He remembered the elders' warning about river spirits that trick men with sweet promises. But the temptation burned inside him. He had always wanted more: money, land, respect in the village. "Anything I desire," he whispered. The voice replied, soft but dangerous, "Anything. Just remove the cork." Emeka's hands trembled. Ozioma, sensing danger, shouted, "Brother, don't touch it. That is not treasure, it is evil." But Emeka's eyes were already glowing with greed. He reached for the cork. As his fingers touched it, the bottle grew warm, then hot, then burning. The markings lit up like fire. A surge of wind tore through the hut, scattering mats and pots. Ozioma screamed, grabbing his arm. "Emeka, stop." But he pulled harder, until pop. The cork flew off. The hut went dark. The ground trembled, and from the bottle poured a thick, black smoke that swirled around them. In the center of the smoke, a woman's figure slowly appeared. Her eyes burned like coal, her hair flowed like living shadows, and her smile was both beautiful and terrifying. It was Nkem. She stepped forward, her voice dripping with sweetness and venom. "At last, after so many years, I am free." Emeka dropped to his knees, half in awe, half in terror. "What will you give me?" Nkem bent close, her cold hand touching his face. "Oh, I will give you everything. But first..." She turned slowly, her eyes settling on Ozioma, who trembled in the corner. "I must finish what was started." The air thickened. Shadows crept along the walls, whispering like snakes. The bottle still sat on the ground, glowing faintly as though it wasn't finished with its curse. And outside, the villagers began to hear strange singing drifting through the night, an old song of obedience. "Obey me, obey me, obey me." The moment Kim's voice echoed, the air inside the hut turned heavy, pressing down on their chests. Ozioma could hardly breathe. She clutched the wall for balance, whispering prayers under her breath. But Emeka, poor, greedy Emeka, was staring at Nkem as though he had seen a goddess. "Teach me," he begged. "Make me powerful. Let the whole village bow before me." Nkem's lips curved into a cruel smile. "So eager. So foolish. You remind me of someone I once knew." She placed her hand on his forehead. His body convulsed, his eyes rolled back, and when they opened again, faint red light flickered in them. Ozioma screamed, "Brother, stop. Can't you see she's using you?" But Emeka turned to her with a strange smile. "Don't worry, Ozioma. We will be rich. We will be feared. We will be gods in this village." Nkem laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally, shaking the hut's wooden beams. She raised her hand, and shadows swirled around Emeka, clothing him in a smoky armor. His body grew taller, his muscles hardened, his skin gleamed as though fire ran beneath it. "Rise, my servant," she commanded. "You are mine now." Ozioma's heart pounded as she backed away. She knew the elders were right, this was no human woman. This was a spirit, bound to darkness. and now her brother had become its vessel. She ran into the night, barefoot, tears streaming down her face. Help! Somebody help! But the village was eerily silent. Not a dog barked, not a cock crowed. The Eritzel. Behind her, Emika's voice thundered. Ozioma! Come back! Obey her. She looked back, and froze. The villagers were coming out of their huts, but something was terribly wrong. Their eyes glowed faintly red, their movements stiff. One by one, they began to chant in unison, just like the voices in the bottle. Obey. 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 Nkem stepped out of the hut, regal like a queen, her long shadow stretching across the compound. She raised her arms, and the entire village bowed at once. Except Ozioma. The girl trembled, but something inside her refused to bend. She fell to her knees, praying loudly, God of my fathers, protect me from this evil. Let no darkness swallow my soul. Nkem's smile vanished. She hissed, her voice turning sharp. You dare resist me? Child, you have no idea the power you face. But Ozioma's prayer grew louder, stronger, her voice cutting through the thick night air. The ground shook violently. The villagers, under Nkem's spell, wailed as though in pain. Even Emika staggered, clutching his head, torn between his sister's call and Nkem's grip. Nkem's eyes blazed with fury. She raised her hand to strike Ozioma down. But just then, the bottle that Emika had opened rolled from the hut and stopped at Ozioma's feet. It glowed again. She looked at it with wide eyes. A voice, not Nkem's this time, but deeper, older, whispered from the clay. Child, seal her again. You alone are free from her command. Ozioma's hands shook as she picked up the bottle. The heat seared her palms, but she didn't let go. She shouted, in the name of the Almighty, return to the prison you came from. Nkem shrieked, a sound that shattered windows. Her form twisted, smoke pouring from her mouth and eyes as she tried to resist. Emika collapsed, screaming, as the red glow left his body. The villagers fell silent, their eyes clearing, confusion returning to their faces. The bottle pulled at Nkem, dragging her in piece by piece, her arms, her legs, her screaming face. She clawed at the ground, leaving scorch marks, but nothing could save her. With one last blood-curdling cry, she was sucked back into the clay prison. The cork sealed itself with a heavy thud. Silence. Ozioma collapsed to the ground, weeping, clutching the cursed bottle to her chest. Around her, the villagers gathered in confusion, murmuring about what they had just witnessed. Emika lay unconscious, breathing but weak. One old man, the village elder, approached with trembling hands. His eyes widened when he saw the bottle. My child, he whispered, do you know what you are holding? Ozioma shook her head, still shaking. Only that it is evil. The elder nodded gravely. That is no ordinary evil. That is the bottle of obedience. It was buried long ago, cursed by spirits and blood. Your grandmother's name, was it Nkemdili? Ozioma gasped. How do you know? He sighed deeply. Because she was the first. And if this bottle is not destroyed, she will not be the last. Ozioma sat trembling on the cold ground, the cursed bottle heavy in her hands. The elder's words echoed in her mind, if this bottle is not destroyed, she will not be the last. The villagers gathered around, whispering. Some begged her to keep it, saying it could bring wealth and power. Others shouted that it must be buried again. Her eyes shifted to her brother Emika, lying unconscious beside her. He had nearly lost his soul to the bottle. She remembered his face when he begged for power, and fear pierced her heart. For a moment, just a moment, the bottle whispered again. Nkem's faint voice slithered through the clay. Ozioma, don't destroy me. I can make you great. No one will ever mock you. No one will ever step on you again. Just one command, and they will all obey you. Her hands trembled. She saw images in her mind, villagers kneeling, her family rich, her name feared. The temptation burned. But then she looked at her brother's weak body. She remembered the empty, red eyes of the villagers. She remembered the screams in the night. With tears streaming down her face, Ozioma lifted the bottle high and shouted. I choose freedom. I choose life. This evil ends with me. With all her strength, she hurled the bottle against the sacred rock at the edge of the village square. Crash! The clay shattered into 1,000 glowing shards. A scream tore through the night, Nkem's final cry, before it faded into silence forever. The shards turned to dust, carried away by the wind. The villagers gasped, then broke into cheers. The spell was broken. The curse was gone. Emeka slowly opened his eyes, weak but alive. He looked at his sister and whispered, "You saved me." Ozioma knelt beside him, holding his hand tightly. "No, brother. God saved us. But we must never let greed blind us again." The elder nodded in agreement. "Let this be a lesson for generations. Power gained through darkness always ends in destruction." The village returned to peace. Ozioma grew to be respected as a wise young woman, remembered for her courage. And the river, once cursed, flowed quietly again, its secrets finally buried. But on certain moonlit nights, some say they still hear faint whispers in the wind, a warning, not a threat. Obey only what is right, or you will obey darkness. Sparkles, if you enjoyed this chilling story of suspense, betrayal, and redemption, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Your support keeps more stories like this coming.